Chicago Chamber Holiday Bash, hosted by our friends here at US Bank. Tony, Christina, Xavier, and the rest of his staff, thank you again for hosting this holiday bash here for our networking event. I want to thank all our businesses that came out, all our business community, as well as our people that have donated for the catering, the food, as well as our raffles. El Güero, First Choice Market, Macias, C&G, Caprice, and Commercial Food and Liquors. Thank you again, guys, for your donations and helping out. We're going to be doing raffles in about 5 minutes, and then another raffle pull in about 30 minutes after that. And Adrian's getting excited. He already knows what he wants. So make sure that you have your business cards in the bowl up there where the sign-in sheet is, so you can have a chance to win one of the raffles. And Joann, did you want to speak a little bit?
Maybe more than people want to hear, but...
We're also, it's our 90th year anniversary for the South Chicago Chamber of Commerce. And we're going to be celebrating that for a whole year until next September. We, in every networking event or event that we do till then, the theme is going to be about the history of South Chicago. So Joann's going to speak a little bit about the pictures that are hanging on the wall over here. And again, why it was a perfect opportunity to have this networking event here at the US Bank, one of the oldest buildings here in South Chicago. Joann?
All right.
Yeah, so she wants to come up to the...
Yeah, just everybody can kind of come up and you can get a closer look later, but I could sort of give you the overall view of it. I'm very proud to be a member of the Chamber's board, and in my spare time I volunteer at the Southeast Chicago Historical Society Museum in Caroline Park, where you kind of get a take on all the great stuff that's happened in the past. The first presentation we did last after hours meeting was Ghosts of South Chicago. So we had an opportunity to take a look look at photos of businesses that were here, had an impact, and now are gone elsewhere or just disappeared completely. So this time we thought we would take a look at things that we still have. And this is a work in progress. We do not have everything that's available, but there's a particular take we're doing on this. The title of this one is not Ghosts of South Chicago, but instead it's Groundswell. Because there are things that are happening that are going to affect us whether we like it or not, whether we're ready or not. Better ready, though. But in particular, there's something called the Millennium Reserve. And I think that from conversations I've had with various people, many people are already aware of this. It's an investment in a lot of conservation and recreational stuff on both sides of the line, Indiana and Illinois. If you've been over in Indiana buying gas like and you've seen things that are happening over at Wolf Lake, Walhalla Beach, that's the impact of the Marquette Plan, which is part of Millennium Reserve. And this says Greater Calumet Region, so anything along the Calumet River, and guess where we are? Right next to the Calumet River is going to be affected. I think this is like a first step toward National Heritage Corridor designation, which is phenomenal. Pullman is getting its national park status. This would be a peg below that, which means you don't have to have all the landmark buildings and everything like that. You don't have to will the property to the state or anything. It's more casual. It's been going on for about 30 years, but it gives an opportunity to people who are in areas like ours, where we have a lot of treasures that we need to celebrate. The National Heritage Corridor would go as far east as the Indiana Dunes. So that takes us to the beginning of the Calumet River. Actually, it's the Grand Calumet or the Little Calumet, Gary, through there. And around Michigan City, Chesterton, and it would come all the way through here, go north, include Bronzeville, and end up at Field Museum. So how many miles are we talking about? Oh, like from here to Michigan City is about 50. How do you know? When you get off the toll road, it just tells you it's like 49 miles. So the point is that this is huge. This is absolutely huge. And people are beginning to get the material together to move forward. Field Museum is taking the lead in collecting all of this material and acknowledging everybody. And it will probably be the advocate for the application that has to go to Congress. And Congress has to approve. But you don't have to wait for that. We've got plenty of things to celebrate. We don't need to wait for that. But the point is that it's there, and it's kind of poking us and encouraging us to take a look at what we have and identify it. On the other side, over here, is Lakeside. And Lakeside will be almost 600 acres, totally green, sustainable, phenomenal, futuristic city. It hasn't started yet, but it has done some things like put in that great stretch of 41, right? And everybody's going through there thinking, wow, we've never had access to the lake before. Things are happening. So we're in between, right? So we're in between the concept of the Millennium Reserve and the National Heritage Corridor that's coming in from the east, and also Lakeside that's coming in this way. So what do we have to offer? What's here is just a work in progress. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but we tried to bring together as much as we could. We have natural areas, not immediately in South Chicago, but we're getting more and more city parks. So how many of you have heard of Big Marsh Park? 116th and Stony Island. Can you imagine at the foot of the landfill, a park out of a swamp, and someone who owns a company that specializes in components for specialty and elite bikes is investing a couple of $1 million to put a mountain trail bike thing in there. So, wow, and that's not that far from where we are, right? Okay, so that's part of it. These are all the natural areas that are in this immediate area. not hard to get to, and all part of the 10th Ward. Okay. If you want to see what kinds of events they offer, the Forest Preserve put out this nice calendar. If you have never been kayaking or canoeing or ziplining, they'll have a date for you to go to this. Where's Virginia? Virginia caught some fish, caught trout. I was talking to her a couple minutes ago. At Wolf Lake recently, okay, and that's part of the heritage of this community too. So there's lots of outdoor stuff also. Okay, now, if we get into, so what have we got? Art. We have an art center, South Chicago Art Center. They're going to get a new space. We're looking forward to that. We have sculptural pieces. You've seen the Richard Hunt stainless steel sculpture, which is at 79th in the Drive, right? And he's famous, absolutely famous, and that's his work there. There's more. Murals. We have a considerable number of murals. Many have been in the community for quite a while. And then we have a whole new phase of that also. We have our heroes, people who dedicated their lives to the community and in some cases gave their lives up for people in the community so things would be better for us. Where will you find their names? Often on the honorary street signs. Celebrities, we have performers. Okay, I'm looking around this room and I don't think too many people remember Gene Kruger. Oh, we got hands up. Okay, if you are a fan of 1930s and 1940s movies, if you watch any of the big band movies, you're very likely to see him. He usually gets solos on drums. And he created the concept of percussion solo. So why is he there? He grew up at 88th and Commercial, went to Immaculate Conception, okay? And is buried at Holy Cross. We have someone who comes to the museum who's an expert on him. Okay. Other things, movies that were made here. If you stand at about 90th and Commercial and look across the street to where the original Podkul was in this area, and if Immaculate Conception is in the background, you're standing exactly where Richard Kimball, Harrison Ford stood in The Fugitive. And that's not the only movie site that we can boast about.
Directed by Andy Davis, a graduate of Bowen High School.
Exactly.
Right.
So Andy Davis, and he graduated in class of 64. And another thing, remember last time that we had the after hours thing, and Colin Young was here? Well, my watch battery died, so I had to go to Colin Young. And I was there when somebody named Pete Lopez was there. He was about 80, and he was talking about things here. He said he actually met Andy Davis when he was filming The Fugitive, and Andy said to him, you know where I got my start with cameras? And he said, no, I don't know. And he said, YMCA, South Chicago. Okay, so lots of things to celebrate, and really tons more. Authors, including my husband over there, we use this area for work that they do. Another thing that we might consider using 91st for, call it Heart and Soul Street. What's on 91st Street? Church after church after church, social service agency after social service agency, and also a little bit off 91st Street, the Daily Calumet, which lived for 100 years, and it was like one of the only dailies that lived that long. So that's to be celebrated also. We also have architectural and cultural sites. We don't necessarily designate them as that, but would you want to look up for the ceiling right now? Is that not fantastic? You could be in a cathedral in Rome. I mean, it's a copper ceiling. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So there were Italians, I think it was the Olivieri brothers who did that. Okay, and it's still here for us. Okay, so we have banks. This one goes back to the 1920s, but MB Financial, which used to be Steel City and was something else in an earlier iteration. That is more than 100 years old. So we do have buildings that are substantial and should be recognized for that. We also have churches that are more than 100 years old, and they should be recognized. All right, so on this part, Soul Street architecture. Okay. One thing that we were talking about earlier, this building, which is on East 91st Street, you may recognize it, maybe not. It's a flat brick. Just above the entrance, there's a number. The actual address now is 3307, but when we were part of Hyde Park Village or Township and not part of Chicago, it was 96. The original address is still on that house. I don't know if you're going to find many houses like that in this area, but the point is that this is historic. Okay. Really quickly also, you may not think that working class housing is worth celebrating, but when you think about the steel mill, and at one time, 20,000 people worked there? I mean, that's mind-blowing, right? Now there's like nothing there except for the Lakeside Development office. But this house is right across from where the mill was. And the mill was like a dragon spewing fire all the time. Sometimes it was like around the clock. Well, this little guy survived. But that little guy, to begin with, was just a tiny cottage. It's still there. You can see that it's been extended. When it was built, the plumbing was, guess where? Outside. They probably had little coal stoves to heat it. No central heating. This place is still there. Okay, a little worried about it, but it's still there. This is another cottage, which is, I think, on Buffalo. So that was the original one. You can see the vaulted sidewalks too, right? That had to be built when the sewer lines were finally put in. And this house has character. Look at this. All these extensions, right? Maybe that's a little strange, but interesting. These were mostly wooden houses to begin with. This is another one. Look at how much of the property they used at that time. So you have the main building here at Two Flat, and behind it, what might have been a little carriage house, but that's a place where people live, and they still live there. Okay, this one's a little bit boarded up, and it's a multi-unit one. But if you look along the side, look at all those windows. That was very likely a boarding house at one time. So what did that mean? It didn't mean that you had an apartment with a bath and a half. It meant you shared the bathroom with everybody else who lived there. And you probably had one room, but you were not the only one who used it. So with shift work, you could have at least 2 guys sharing the same room. And if you got down to 8 hours a day, you could have 3 guys, right? And to us, this is appalling, right? But this is how they live. And these are stories that these buildings tell us. Okay, this one's also interesting. You start with a brick building at the corner, and then they added this. So you've got an additional space like a rooming house. This building is probably familiar to many people here, but it wasn't gray. It was sort of a red brown. This is where Neil Basanko was. And it was a boarding house. So you can see through all the windows here. But also look at what's happening. Someone is maintaining it. Somebody is trying to preserve that building. So there's 2 apartments. If you're real lucky, you own it and you live here on the first floor and you rent out the second or whatever. But you're still making maximum use of the space. This is one on 89th and Exchange. That is really quite lovely. I think somebody's probably already made quite an investment in it. This one also at 89th and Exchange has got 3 buildings that show you how the space was used, a 2-flat, a 3-flat, with a small attic, and also a cottage next to it. 3 flats, nicely done, right? Okay, and these are all here, they're still here, and should be celebrated. This one, also at 89th and Exchange, so the Greystone residence, this is phenomenal. We're not used to having buildings that look like mansions, right? This is probably as close as we've done. Okay. We also have businesses. You're not going to go down Commercial Avenue and see that everything has been demolished. That's not the case. The original building stock is often there. So this is taken from where the old U.S. Bank was, right at the corner of the 89th and Commercial, and these buildings are still there, and the businesses are still there also. So we have a lot to celebrate, right? Okay. I started to put together a list of long-term businesses, which is another thing. Do you know Johnston's paint store? We have records at the museum that put that back to 1900. And Roma's Restaurant, 1900, So we have a lot of that to celebrate. When we get to this corner, we're beginning to move into the lakeside influence. but everything that way, I believe, should be celebrated. So that people know that this was a working class community and we still revere what we have. All right, when we get to this, every May we celebrate a Green Summit, and the Green Summit during that time, we highlight green open space in the 10th Ward. We highlight green buildings and also green gardens, which we have a lot of. All of this is sort of in preparation for what's going to be happening at Lakeside. It's saying it will be totally green. That means that water on the property stays on the property, gets turned into something visible. That means that waste is almost at zero level, so they're composting all their leftover food and stuff, right? Okay, and energy sources will be like wind power, will be solar power, got it? But if you look at South Chicago now, you will also see solar panels, some on new buildings, some on senior residences, some on actual homes, got it? And this is over on Buffalo, about 90th Buffalo. These are Claretian-built, energy-efficient, and affordable housing examples. This was their first phase of housing. And with these, you don't see solar panels, but they're made of energy-efficient materials. The appliances inside are all Energy Star, and they also have, they're also using recycled materials inside for cabinets and other things like that. So there are other things that happen with the green movement here in South Chicago that Lakeside might learn from. So, do you feel the groundswell? Yeah. Okay, now, you didn't see this, did you? Okay. Another thing that we're very, very happy to share with you, well, two things. One thing is funny and the other thing is absolutely beautiful. So we have all of these things that we can celebrate. So what's the only brown sign that we have that gets tourists off US 41 and into the community? Well, it says the lakefront, you have to go some distance to Jeffrey or whatever. It's the National Shrine of St. Jude. And I don't have any problem with that because that's wonderful. But St. Jude is the patron saint of lost causes. And we don't do better, right? I mean, we celebrate this and we celebrate the other things too. Okay, now one other thing that we found out about just yesterday, otherwise we would have been happy to share it. There will be, I left this space right here, of course I didn't bring the tape with me. Okay, in regard to art and sculptural pieces, there's something listed here called the Steelworkers Memorial Monument. That will be a 10-foot high sculpture of a steelworker and his family. It is being worked on right now. And this is what it looks like. Tomorrow, if you have time, between 9 and 4, if you go over to the Calumet Park Field House, go over to the girls' locker room. Tonight is the girls' locker room anymore. And you will see the artist, Roman Villarreal, who's from this community, working on this, which is foam. He does this out of foam. It's 10 feet high. I think you, right in here, you can see either Roman or his friend Harry, who's helping him out with this. It's in foam now, and then it will be molded in bronze. This will go at 87th Street.
Friday, you could see it, not tomorrow.
Friday, I'm sorry, I said tomorrow. That's right, it was Friday, okay. And this will go in at 87th Street and the park, so it'll be like at the end of the Orwells, which are also treasures. Where else can you go and find Orwells that are 40 feet high and 2 blocks long, right? Of course, when Roman looks at that, he sees art. You know, things are happening. And someone also said that they thought that they might be doing climbing. Okay, so that's it. I'll leave this right here for a minute until I get my tape and I'll put it up there. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Joann. Makes you appreciate the history of our South Chicago neighborhood. Another quick announcement from Yolanda, my my co-partner at the East Side Chamber of Commerce. They came to visit out here to South Chicago. She's going to come up for a second.
Good evening. I'm really glad to see you all together here, as I also will be inviting the business networking on December 18th. We will be hosting a holiday bash as well at the East Side Soccer Dome on 119 South Avenue O. I myself, I'm glad to see that Dan and I are going to be working very close together, because I was actually born in a house that today is the senior citizen home for right across the street from Our Lady of Guadalupe. I was literally born at that spot. My mother said that that's where I left the umbilical cord. And since I left it there, I have not been able to detach myself. Though I am on the east side, I've never felt that we were separate from the South Chicago. And that's how I feel. Not only are we a neighborhood, we're the 10th ward. And as a 10th ward, we need to work together, because we need to bring that piece of pie that gets the sliver smaller and smaller. We need to have the whole cake. And the only way to do that is to unify and show the strength that got lost when we lost the steel mills. I was here when the commercial area was flourishing. Stores began here. Bargain Town became Toys R Us. The 5 and 10 became Kmart. They are now big stores, and they left us. We need to bring them back here. So we have to work together. And regardless of how small you are in business, you are an asset to our neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, Christina, I'm going to come up and we're going to pull a couple raffle prizes out. And then we'll get back to